My name is Jason Clark, and I want to tell you how the business I worked so hard to build ended up in my stepbrother's hands, and how that changed everything for me. Before I start, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. Family doesn't mean everything, Gloria muttered softly as the lawyer snapped the will folder shut. I was 48, stunned, sitting there watching my stepmother beam as the attorney handed the company I gave my life to, over to Logan, my stepbrother, who couldn't tell the difference between maple and cedar. Just like that, Clark Timberworks was his. I'd poured 2 decades into that place. Early mornings, boots heavy with mud, shaking hands with folks who trusted my word more than any piece of paper. Gloria's comment felt like a slap, but I kept my mouth shut. I nodded politely, stood up, and left the room without saying a word. Outside, Emily, my half-sister, caught up with me. Tears streaked down her face. "Jason, this isn't right. Dad always said you were the soul of that business." I unlocked my old truck, paused, and said quietly, "Maybe he did. But I guess souls don't get the deeds to lumber companies." On the long drive home to my place in Helena, I couldn't stop thinking. I was 25 when my father, Frank, brought me in after I finished at Montana State. Back then, Clark Timberworks was barely keeping its doors open. Competitors were undercutting us, and we had no real supplier loyalty. Dad was great at working with his hands, not so much at making deals. One step at a time, I turned things around. I memorized every delivery driver's route, every client's habits. When Summit Mill needed emergency wood shipments during the housing rush, I loaded the truck myself and drove through winter storms to keep their work going. When coastal lumber hit tough times, I gave them room to breathe on payments, and they've stuck by us ever since. Revenue grew from $2 million to $12 million. We had nearly 40 employees across the region. Customers called my personal phone because they knew I'd find solutions. I never needed applause. The results spoke loud enough. Meanwhile, Logan drifted through school, changing majors, trying out one failed business plan after another in his 30s. 4 years ago, Dad gave him a fancy title, operations strategist, and the nicest office. Logan talked big about efficiency and future-proofing, but didn't know how to run a forklift or what proper timber curing meant. Frank adored him, and Gloria encouraged it. Every family dinner became Logan's stage for throwing around terms from business school. My work, barely mentioned. I should have seen the signs. Dad started bringing Logan along to meetings where he sat silent. Gloria kept pushing Logan's so-called vision every time investors visited. About a month ago, I noticed my signature rights on big deals had been quietly trimmed. I let it go. I believed in the work. I thought loyalty and results would matter. I was wrong. Growing up, I was the kid helping Dad stack wood after school while others played ball. When I was 16 and Mom passed, work became how we coped. Dad always said, "Jason, this business isn't just wood. It's about keeping promises. People stick with us because we're solid." Then he married Gloria 5 years later. Logan joined our family, and suddenly, I wasn't the only son. At first, I was glad. Logan was polite, and Dad seemed happier. But Gloria had a plan. She steered Logan into business school while suggesting I should stick to daily operations. She praised Logan's degrees at dinner, treating my experience like it didn't matter. Over time, Dad started listening more to them. When Logan got his MBA, Dad threw a party, calling him the future of the company. I welcomed new ideas. I didn't expect Logan to edge me out so fast. Logan talked a polished game, but didn't understand the basics. When Patterson Mills needed a quick order, Logan wanted to upcharge because the market could bear it. I had to remind him, Patterson had been loyal for 15 years. Fair pricing builds loyalty. But to him, I was stuck in the past. He even started recording our talks to show Dad how outdated I was. Little by little, Logan became Dad's go-to on choices I'd handled for decades. When Redwood Supply offered us an exclusive, Logan overcomplicated it with profit-sharing ideas. All they wanted was dependable service. We almost lost that deal thanks to him. Logan set up client calls without me, left out key details in updates, and pitched ideas that ignored how things really worked. By the time I saw the full picture, it was already too late. Whenever equipment failed, Logan's answer was always the same: spend big on replacements. He couldn't see the value in the repair crews who had kept us running smoothly for years. Gloria backed him on everything. She'd tell Frank that Logan had a modern vision while I was clinging to old habits. Anytime a major choice came up, she reminded Dad about Logan's fancy degree, as if my 20 years of hard-earned experience didn't count for anything. As Frank's health declined in those final months, I watched my role fade into the background. Logan was the one attending meetings with the bank. Gloria took charge of legal matters. I kept the business steady day to day, but the big decisions, those happened without me. I kept hoping it was temporary, that Dad just needed Logan's energy while he was sick. I never imagined I'd be pushed out for good. Frank's funeral was on a Thursday. By the following Monday, we were gathered for the reading of his will. That weekend, I stayed late at the office, trying to organize files I thought Logan would need to understand what he was inheriting. That's when I opened a folder that stopped me cold. It turned out Dad had shifted everything. The main yard, the property I always believed belonged to the company, had been moved into a trust under Gloria's control. The leases I'd worked so hard to negotiate now had Logan's name as guarantor. Even the business accounts couldn't be touched without signatures from both Gloria and Logan. Sitting there in Frank's leather chair, I stared at the documents. This wasn't some snap decision. The groundwork had been laid long before. All the deals I'd fought for, the connections I'd built, handed off to someone who hadn't earned any of it. Then came the hardest blow. A half-finished note from Dad hidden in the back of the drawer. His handwriting was shaky but clear. Jason, you've been the strength behind this company since you were 25. I know this will seem unfair, but Logan needs this chance. You're strong enough to build something new. He can't step out from your shadow. I read it again and again. Frank knew exactly what he was doing. He convinced himself that giving Logan everything was somehow helping me, thinking I was so capable I'd be fine, thinking Logan was too fragile to stand on his own. I didn't throw anything. I didn't raise my voice. I just sat there, feeling it sink in. That evening, Emily called to check on me. "How are you holding up?" she asked quietly. "I'm all right," I told her. "Logan got what he wanted. Now let's see if he can handle it. Jason, everyone knows that company was yours in all but name. Now they'll get to see what it looks like without me." After the call, I went to the garage and opened an old folder I'd kept tucked away. Papers, logos, business plans for Summit Timber Solutions. I'd set it up years earlier during a rough patch, but had never acted on it. It was supposed to be my backup, one I hoped I'd never need. That night I opened my laptop and started listing what I still had. Not what I'd lost, what I could take with me. The list was longer than I expected. Logan inherited the company name. I had the trust, the partnerships, the loyalty. Those weren't things a will could hand over. They walked out the door with me. The next morning, I arrived at the yard like usual. Logan's car was already there. The first time he'd beaten me in years. I found him in Dad's old office, sitting at the desk, like he'd always belonged there. "Jason," he said, without looking up from his screen. "Glad you're here. I've been going over operations. We need to make some changes right away." I leaned on the doorway. "What kind of changes?" "I'm taking over client relationships. I've already booked meetings with our top accounts. I want to introduce myself as the new owner and go over contract improvements." My stomach dropped. "Logan, those relationships took years to build. You charge in like that, you're going to shake their confidence." He glanced up, and I saw Gloria's smugness in his eyes. "Jason, I respect what you did here, but I've got a business degree and fresh ideas. Our clients need to see Clark Timberworks moving forward. Moving toward what? A data-focused, modern business that maximizes value for everyone involved. I walked in and sat down across from him. Patterson Mills has been with us for 15 years. Coastal Lumber sticks around because we keep our promises. These aren't just clients, they're relationships. That's exactly the problem, Logan said, closing his laptop. We've been too focused on being friendly. It's time to be profitable first. In the days that followed, I watched him undo years of work. He changed delivery schedules to optimize routes, not caring what that did to customers' projects. He raised prices and cut the loyalty discounts I'd fought to protect. When Patterson Mills called me, I felt trapped. "Jason, what's happening over there?" they asked. "This kid says we need to restructure for mutual gain. I've been in this business 30 years. Never heard such nonsense. Give him a little time, I said. Logan's still learning. Time? He's jacking up our prices 20% and cutting the payment terms that kept us afloat. Is that really what you want? I said I'd talk to Logan. But when I did, Logan didn't want to hear it. Jason, you're too attached to these old deals. Patterson Mills only makes up 12% of our revenue. If they won't pay market prices, we'll find new clients. They're 12% because I spent 15 years earning their loyalty. You can't replace that overnight, I said firmly. Just watch me. By the end of the week, I'd taken calls from 3 more angry customers. Logan demanded immediate payments from Coastal Lumber, ignoring the 60-day terms that had worked smoothly for 8 years. He tried to twist our exclusive agreement with Redwood Supply, asking them to pay extra just to stay our preferred partner. The breaking point came when I overheard him on the phone with Summit Mill, our biggest supplier. I don't care what my stepbrother promised, Logan said, voice cold. I'm running things now. Either your prices get sharper or we open the contract to other bids. I stepped into his office and shut the door behind me. Logan, Summit Mill's been our main supplier for 6 years. They helped us through the recession, gave us priority during shortages. You can't just threaten them. This is exactly what's kept us stuck, Jason. Loyalty doesn't show up on a financial statement. No, but trust does, and you're burning through 2 decades of it in a matter of days. He stood, facing me. This is my company now. If you can't get behind my plans, maybe it's time you found something else to do. I stared at him for a long second, then gave a small nod. Maybe you're right. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, coffee in hand, tablet open, finally digging into the uneasy feeling I'd been carrying. Logan's confidence seemed too calculated, like he had something backing him up. Public records told the first part of the story. The family trust that now controlled our properties? It hadn't been created recently. Gloria set it up 2 years earlier, long before Frank got sick. But what really caught my eye was Northview Holdings, Logan's private company, quietly registered 2 years back. A few phone calls painted the bigger picture. Paula at Midwest Lumber mentioned that Logan had been asking around about our supplier deals for months, saying it was research for Frank. Neil at Western Bank hinted that Logan had pitched loan plans focused on slashing supplier costs and trimming staff. Then came the biggest piece. My cousin Owen, who worked in commercial property, hesitated when I brought up the trust. Jason, I shouldn't say this, but I helped Gloria scout warehouse space in Everett about 6 months ago. She said it was for a lumber supply startup, wanted to be near rail lines and ports. She had a lot of detailed questions about zoning and freight access. Everything clicked. This wasn't just about Logan inheriting Clark Timberworks. The plan was to strip it for parts, shift contracts and contacts to a new business, Northview Timber Supply, and leave the old company to sink under its debts. But they made one mistake. Those connections didn't belong to the company. They belonged to me. That Monday, I started making calls. Patterson, it's Jason Clark. Just giving you a heads up. I won't be with Clark Timberworks much longer, but I'm working on something to keep serving you. If you're leaving, Jason, we're out too. You're the reason we stuck with them. I heard the same thing from Coastal, Redwood, and more. Every one of them wanted to know how to follow me. The last, most important call was to Greg Hansen at Summit Mill. Greg, I need the truth. Are you sticking around for Logan, or were you here for me? Greg let out a laugh. Jason, you're the one who stood behind us when your company was struggling. You think we're going to stay loyal to the guy who just threatened to shop our contract around? If you're starting fresh, just tell me when you're ready for your first load. By Tuesday night, I had my supplier support lined up and promises from 70% of our clients. Logan thought he inherited a company. What he really got was a logo and some empty buildings. The real business was leaving with me. By Wednesday, I activated Summit Timber Solutions. Turned out I'd spent 2 years getting ready without realizing it. The licenses were up to date, insurance ready, banking relationships already in place from when I'd been frustrated with our old lender. First move, I grabbed a warehouse Owen had mentioned. Not the one Gloria had bought, but a better facility nearby that had been sitting vacant. I signed a 5-year lease with room to expand. Then I started calling our best team leaders. Carl, it's Jason. Got a minute? Carl had led our forklift crew for over a decade, the guy every client trusted to get their orders right. What's going on, Jason? Things have felt off ever since Logan took over. That's why I'm calling. How would you feel about making a change? Same work, better pay, fresh start. When do we start? Carl had trained every worker who joined us and kept the inventory running like clockwork. But more than that, he was the one clients trusted to handle their orders right. Jason, what's going on? Things haven't felt right since Logan took over, Carl said. That's why I'm calling, I told him. What would you say to a fresh start? Depends. What kind of fresh start? I'm setting up my own company. Same work, same clients, better pay. Are you in? When do we begin? In just 2 days, 8 of our top 12 employees were on board. I didn't need to convince anyone. Folks were already tired of how Logan ran things. Word spread, and they came to me on their own. The tricky part was lining up contract transitions. I needed to fulfill Clark Timberworks' current deals while getting my new company ready. My solution? I offered myself as an external contractor. That Thursday, I called Logan. Logan, I've been thinking about what you said, about finding other paths. I've got a plan that could work for both of us. I'm listening. I'm going independent, but I can help Clark Timberworks through this change by managing key accounts as a contractor. You pay a fee. I handle relationships. You focus on finding new business. He paused, weighing his options. He needed those accounts, but he also wanted me gone. This gave him both. What kind of fee? 20% of gross from any accounts I manage. That's steep. Patterson Mills alone brings in over $1 million a year. If they walk, that's $1 million gone. 20% of something is better than nothing. He agreed, probably thinking it was short-term. But this gave me the space I needed to build Summit Timber Solutions without burning bridges. Over the next week, Clark Timberworks still had the contracts, on paper. But clients worked only with me. I handled the orders, the shipments, the issues. Logan was happy because money came in. Gloria liked that I wasn't technically staff anymore. Clients were satisfied because nothing seemed different. But behind the scenes, I was laying the groundwork. Every call hinted at my consulting. Every supplier chat strengthened their loyalty to me. My team learned our new systems while keeping Clark Timberworks afloat. Logan thought he was offloading problems. In reality, he was funding my next move. A month later, the contracts shifted fully to Summit Timber Solutions. Clark Timberworks? Just a name and empty offices. Then, one Tuesday in December, the call came. I was in my new office with Carl going over the week's schedule when my phone rang. It was Emily. Jason, you should know. Logan's in Dad's old office with Gloria and some man in a suit. They look shaken. What kind of suit? The kind that shows up with bad news. An hour later, Neil at Western Bank called. Jason, I shouldn't be telling you this, but Clark Timberworks just defaulted on its loan. Logan's blaming vendors and begging for emergency help. What did you tell him? Same thing I tell anyone when the numbers stop adding up. We'll be recovering assets immediately. By that afternoon, word was out. Clark Timberworks had lost its top clients, its key suppliers, and its experienced team, all in a month. Payments bounced. Payroll was at risk. At 4 p.m., Logan called. Jason, we need to talk. This contractor setup isn't working. What's wrong? Our clients are leaving. Suppliers won't return calls. Something's off. I've done what we agreed on. Managed the accounts. If they choose to go elsewhere, that's on them. You're sabotaging us. No, Logan, I did what you paid me to do. If the relationships don't want to stay, that's not sabotage. That's just business. A long pause. What do you want? Nothing. You got what Frank left you, the company name. But there was never a business there, Logan. Just relationships. And you can't inherit those. I hung up and looked out at the old Clark Timberworks sign across town. I figured by morning, bankruptcy signs would be taped to the doors. But for the first time since Dad's funeral, I felt at ease. 3 months later, I drove past the property. The sign was gone. A for-lease banner flapped across the gate. Logan had filed for bankruptcy in February. The building sold at auction, set to become storage units. Emily told me Logan moved back to Seattle trying to restart his consulting career. Gloria had sold off the Everett warehouse and shifted to real estate. Neither of them called. Meanwhile, Summit Timber Solutions was thriving. We'd grown from 8 to 15 employees. New clients kept coming, drawn by our reputation. Carl was now head of logistics and had brought in more trusted folks from other yards. One sunny April afternoon, I was checking inventory when Patterson stopped by. Jason, I've got to say, in 30 years, I've never seen someone handle change the way you did. Most folks would have burned it all down. I smiled. Wasn't my job to burn anything down. I just built something better. As he left, I stood for a minute, listening to the hum of forklifts and voices in the yard. The same sounds I'd grown up with, but now they were mine. I stepped outside and looked up at the sign. Summit Timber Solutions. Established 2025. Sometimes, the best answer isn't revenge. It's building the life you were meant for.